So back in our post method, we want to modify the response to the client. So there are two options here. One approach is to return a custom object like this, setting the name to user.name and email to user.email. So this way we can exclude the password and the version properties. This approach is perfectly fine, but in this lecture, I'm going to introduce you to a useful library that gives you a lot of utility functions for working with objects. If you are an experienced JavaScript developer, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. That's Lodash. So head over to lodash.com. This is Lodash, which is basically the optimized version of Underscore. Underscore has been around for a long time. It has a lot of utility functions for working with objects, strings, arrays, and so on. So if you look in the documentation, here we can see all the utility functions that we have for working with various types. We have lots of utility functions for working with arrays, numbers, strings, objects, and so on. So Lodash is extremely powerful, and in this lecture, I'm going to show you how to use it in your Node applications. So back in the terminal, npm install Lodash. So note the current version I'm using, 4.17.4. All right, now back in the code. So here in our users module, on the top, I'm going to import Lodash. So require Lodash. Now by convention, we store the result in a constant called underscore. You can call this anything. You can call this Lodash. But by convention, we use underscore because that's short and clean. Now, this underscore object that we have here has a utility method called pick. So underscore dot pick. So we give this an object, in this case, our user object, and then pass an array of properties in this user object that we want to pick. And this will return a new object with only those properties. So here in this array, I'm going to pass name and email. So when we call this pick method, we'll get a new object with these two properties, name and email. Now, instead of manually repeating this user dot, we can use this pick method. That's more elegant. So we can replace this object here with what we get from the pick method. As simple as that. Now, perhaps here, you may want to include the ID property as well. So that's how we use the pick method. Similarly, we can modify this code, and instead of repeating request.body.request.body.request.body. with underscore.pick. So I'm going to replace this object with underscore.pick. We give it request.body. Now here we might have 50 properties. A malicious user may send us properties to be stored in the database. We only want to handpick a few of these. So we pass an array. We are only interested in name, email, and password. Okay, so we create the user and save it, and then return this custom object to the client. Let's test this one more time to make sure everything is working. So back in terminal, let's run the application. Beautiful. Now back in the Postman, I'm going to send a new request to the server. Send. Okay, and here's our new user object. We only have ID, name, and email. Now in all these requests so far, I have sent really simple passwords. If you want to enforce password complexity, there is an NPM package built on top of Joy called Joy Password Complexity. So back in Google, search for Joy Password Complexity. That's the NPM package. So with this, you can configure an object that determines the password complexity in your application. Minimum number of characters, maximum, how many lowercase or uppercase you want to have, how many numbers, and so on. So the name of the package is Joy password complexity. In this course, we're not going to use this because that's something you can do on your own. All right, our new API endpoint is in good shape, but we're storing our passwords as plain text, and this is very, very bad. So in the next lecture, I'm going to show you how to hash these passwords.